Welcome back, guys. In today's lecture, we can talk about bone formation and development, right? We especially going to focus on intramembranous ossification. In last lecture, we talked about bone functions, and we touched on embryonic development, right? And today we'll talk about intramembranous ossification, as I mentioned you, and the other arm of the bone formation and development is endochondrial ossification, which we're gonna talk in next lecture. Before I dive into today's topic, I just want to make sure like you understand these terms, right? And if you don't know, you can go back and watch my previous lecture about these things, right? But the idea was ossification is a process, it is a developmental process, right? This ossification and osteogenesis kind of like goes together. It is more like formation of bones, it is a process, you can say. And these mesenchymal cells are embryonic cells, right? This can give rise into bone cells as well as other cells like capillaries, right? Ossification centers are like this, right? It is a cluster of different bone cells as well as other types of cells. Osteoporosis is a condition or a disease, right, in which you lose your bone mass. It actually happens when you like after let's say 45 years of age, you start to lose your bone mass. Means the structures that form your bone, basically, right? So, what is the difference between intramembranous and endochondrial ossification? Intramembranous ossification gonna give rise directly from these mesenchymal connective tissues. Okay, undifferentiated mesenchymal connective tissues gonna give rise into the condition called intramembranous ossification. But for the endochondral ossification here is more from like let's say this chondral, you can get the idea, right? From cartilages, they're gonna give rise from these cartilages, okay? And another difference is intramembranous ossification gonna give rise into flat bones, right? Flat bones, including clavicle, skull bones, sternum, and so on. Endochondrial ossification is like bones other than flat bones are actually from endochondrial ossification, and we'll talk about long bones, especially when we're going to talk about endochondrial ossification, where we're going to talk about how length and the width of the bone changes over time. Okay. Now, so what's the deal today? So, in today's lecture, we'll talk about intramembranous ossification. As I mentioned you, right, these are basically developed directly from undifferentiated mesenchymal connective tissue. We're going to talk about steps of intramembranous ossification, and you might, come up with these terms while I was, going to explain these steps. The idea here is osteoblasts basically means these are the immature bone cells, and osteocytes are mature bone cells. Immature means new cells, right? Osteocytes are mature means old cells. That means osteoblasts gonna, transform themselves into osteocytes. Osteoid is a unmineralized bone matrix. Okay, this is a unmineralized bone matrix, right? Bone matrix. And once it mineralized, we consider that as a calcified, right? If this is not mineralized, then we consider that uncalcified one. And the calcification of matrix is very important for the formation of these compact bones. During calcification process, these osteocytes, let's say, these gonna trapped into a certain location and they cannot move. Trabecular matrix is a process. It is a, it's not a process, but it is a stage, right, during bone formation where you see bones kind of like rough in structure. Periosteum, from the name peri, around, osteum is bone, something that surrounds bone, right? Protective in nature. Red bone marrow, we talk about hematopoiesis in last lecture. It is important for formation of those blood cells like WBCs, RBCs, platelets, and so on, right? So let's talk about the process now. This diagram is kind of like misleading, but I'm gonna explain in greater detail so you can understand. First thing, note that intramembranous ossification produces flat bones of skull and clavicle. That is important. And I got this diagram from somewhere from online, right? But this is not like as informative as we want, and this is a little bit complicated. But the idea was these mesenchymal cells. What happens is these mesenchymal cells gonna gather together, which is not shown here. Okay, they're gonna gather together, and they're gonna start to differentiate into specialized cells. They're gonna start to differentiate it into specialized cells. So the mesenchymal cells gonna start to differentiate into specialized cells. I'm going to say MC for mesenchymal cells. Specialized cells can be capillaries or they can be osteogenic cells. Osteogenic cells means like something that going to give rise into bone cells, right? Pretty much like osteoblasts, or these are the new immature bone cells, right? As you can see here, right, this is after differentiation basically. Okay, mesenchymal cells gonna give rise into these capillaries and these osteogenic cells, which are pretty much osteoblasts if they are immature, right? Now what's gonna happen is these, now we're gonna form a structure called ossification center. Again, this is not shown here. Ossification centers. The ossification center is basically, it is formed due to the cluster of these osteoblasts. So these osteoblasts, right? This falls under like between these two diagrams somewhere here, right? These osteoblasts, as you can see, these are osteoblasts here, but these osteoblasts gonna come together, right? They're gonna cluster together like this, right? And they're gonna give like this type of structure that is called ossification center, right? Now these osteoblasts then gonna secrete osteoid. Okay, what is osteoid? I already mentioned osteoid is a unmineralized bone matrix. That means it is not top 8, right? There is no calcification, or this is like more like soft version, right? Uncalcified version. Okay, so these osteoblasts gonna secrete what you call is a osteoid. It's like an enzyme. Let's say, I don't want to say enzyme, but this is something liquid. Like, think about like that, right? So this is an osteoid, right? It is a structure. This is a stage during bone formation. Now, remember that this osteoid can become calcified, right? And it does after a few days. After a few days, it becomes calcified, and this becomes calcified due to the deposition of calcium or this phosphorus. Okay, they're gonna deposit, and these are the minerals, right? And they're gonna make this calcified structure. Now matrix starts to become hard, right? It's like hardened, right? Now osteoblasts then gonna transform themselves into what you call as osteocyte. So this osteocyte basically means once this osteoblast becomes like entrapped, let's say, in this structure, as you can see here, these are entrapped here. This is already calcified, so these cells cannot move, and they are called osteocyte now, right? They're entrapped, can't move. That is the stage. Those cells now we called osteocyte. Previously, we were calling them osteoblasts, right? Now, again, these osteogenic cells in the surrounding connective tissue also starts to differentiate into new osteoblasts. What does that mean? That means these, as you can see, these osteoblasts, right? And this can again differentiate into more and more osteoblasts. The idea was that, right? So let's go a little bit deeper here, right? In the inner structure, let's say. So you see like this honeycomb structure, right? This honeycomb of bone trabeculae, right? This trabeculae is like kind of rough kind of structure, right? Where you see some holes, and from where these capillaries are going, right? There is an in and out of these capillaries and so on, right? You kind of see like this structure, kind of rough structure, and something like, like honeycomb structure kind of thing, right? Now, the idea here is these blood vessels can crowd, right? These crowded blood vessels, let's say, and they can condense together on these structures right here in this structure, and they can give rise into called a red bone marrow, right? Because these are red, red capillaries you can see here, right? And this can cluster together and they can give rise into red bone marrow, and which is very important for the production of these blood cells, right? Think hematopoiesis, very good term to memorize, right? Now, these osteoblasts, again, on the surface of the spongy bone, somewhere here, let's say, right? These osteoblasts here, and what's going to happen is this is going to become periosteum, which is shown here, which is a fibrous periosteum, right? And this is a protective layer. It is a superficial to this trabecular structure, or this spongy bone you can see here. And this compact bone is calcified portion, right? Where these osteocytes are entrapped. They cannot move. It is not movable matrix. Okay, this is entrapped version. Okay, that's why it is called compact bone. Osteoblasts, right? Now here, again, on the superficial to this trabecular structure, or spongy bones, and they are forming this periosteum, and this is very important. Okay, and during osteoporosis, right, this inner bone mass you might lose. When you're gonna age due to some physical stress or something else like genetic disorders, or some health conditions, you're going to start to lose bone mass. Bone mass means something that forms bone, right? You're going to start losing them, and you're going to start having problems with your bone. You may not walk properly and so on, right? There might be different types of problems you might gonna face. So the idea was these mesenchymal cells cluster together, right? Differentiate into capillaries and osteogenic cells like osteoblasts, and there's entrapment occurs due to this osteoid calcification process, and osteocytes are the entrapped version, right? And what's going to happen is later on they're going to give rise into this trabecular structure where these capillaries are going in and out of those holes, let's say, and these structures basically gonna lead into the formation of those red bone marrow, right? And again, these osteoblasts on the superficial to this trabecular structure going to give rise into fibrous periosteum, which has the protective function. And in next lecture we're going to talk about endochondrial ossification, which is the second arm of the bone formation and development. And thank you for watching. See you next time. Bye bye.